Hello, everybody. Hi, and welcome to today's Wonder Why Lunch and Learn. I'm so excited because we have joining us today women's health coach, Elisabeth Wygant, and we'll be bringing her on in a minute. Elisabeth is going to tell us why you are still struggling to drop the extra inches and how to optimize your metabolism for sustainable weight loss after 40. So if you are wondering who am I and what you are doing here, I am Tracy Sider. I am an exercise specialist for women over 40, and I specialize in pain relief and body shape change. I help professionals, coaches, and businesswomen who are done with their stiff, achy, stuck behind screens bodies and are ready to get in shape and feel pain-free. But here's the difference: without the sweat, strain, or time suck of traditional exercise. So I want to welcome you today. Let me bring you on. Elisabeth, thank you so much for coming to join us for this awesome Wonder Why series, because I'm really working with the biomechanics of people's bodies, and you're working more with the biochemistry. So while there are absolutely things going on that I help people with a movement perspective to help them lose their extra inches after 40, there are definitely things going on with our biochemistry. So let me pull you on. I'm going to step back. You're going to be full screen, and I am going to let you take it away. Sure. First of all, let's start by, if you can tell us a little bit about you and what you do and who you work with.
Yes. So hi, everybody. I am Dr. Elisabeth Wygant. I am the women's hormone health coach. I'm a functional nutrition expert, and I empower ambitious women who are feeling overwhelmed, fatigued, and short on time to reclaim their vitality through optimized wellness. So that's a nice mouthful, right? I originally started as a pharmacist in the community setting and realized I wasn't aligned with the practice and knew that there was a better way for people to take care of themselves and nourish their bodies and treat them as the temple that they are. And I felt like I was hitting my head up against a brick wall in my career because of that fact. And then I became a mother, and that's kind of like when everything changed. And I realized that I was not serving in my purpose, and there was something more for me out there. And I had gone through just different experiences in my life, during motherhood rather, where I had a traumatic birth with my first, and then with our second, she ended up in the pediatric ICU, and just lack of support from the employer standpoint, and just being in a toxic work environment, like all of these different events in my life that occurred like back to back to back to back to back. And what really just did it in for me was I ended up getting really sick with mastitis after my second daughter and was placed in the hospital because of it. And that's kind of like where I had what I call my awakening moment. And this was right before like the pandemic, like a couple months before. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not in the right space. I'm not serving where I need to be, and having the epiphany that what I had gone through as a mother, it wasn't really unique to myself. I knew that women have suffered to a lesser greater extent all over the world, and like, I need to be part of this change. So really, like, that was like a pivotal moment for me. And then from that point, I ended up getting recurrent infections and didn't have to go back into the hospital necessarily, but had to be placed on rounds of oral antibiotics. And I'm like, this is not working for me. I had to stop breastfeeding at that point, and I ended up having issues with my gut health. So really, like, my journey with functional medicine and functional nutrition was because I was so sick. And I knew that I could take care of my body through these more holistic measures by nurturing myself this way. So I dove into functional medicine by listening to Dr. Mark Hyman, and then really tapping back into my spirituality as well. That had been a big part of my healing process. And then like 6 months later, another light bulb went off for me. And I realized I'm like, okay, these experiences I could take and I could educate women and really empower them this
Right.
way to take control of
Yeah.
their health and their
Right.
hormones. So that's
So
kind of
what
where
do
it all
you
began.
feel? Amazing. That's an
Yeah.
incredible journey. What do you feel then are the biggest misconceptions that women have in terms of dropping those extra inches that
Mhm.
creep on after 40?
Yeah. So we're often told like that's just part of aging. That's normal. There's not much you can do about it, right? Like that's what's being fed into our minds often from healthcare providers. And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be the case. Like, I have a client currently who her doctor wanted her to start a medication and she wasn't comfortable with it. Um, and I just had an honest conversation with her where we talked about different measures of preventative techniques to help alleviate the symptoms that she was having. So like the weight gain around the midsection is a huge one, which is often a result of insulin resistance. So if you've heard that term, that is um, something that comes up through perimenopause.
Mhm.
And there is a way to help mitigate that by utilizing nutrition appropriately.
Mhm.
So that's where I stepped in and kind of helped her navigate this phase of her life. So I would say like that would be like a big misconception. Like you just have to accept this as normal and it doesn't have to be that way, you
Right.
know, and losing your vitality and not being as lively and energetic. Like we don't have to accept that as normal and
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be our status quo, right?
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. So you're saying then that the biggest struggle that women over 40 and peri and postmenopause have when it comes to these extra inches that creep on, right,
Mhm.
is that it's not normal, it's not something you have to suck up. It has to do with insulin resistance. Is that correct? So you want to
Yeah,
tell us a little bit more about what that is and why that happens in particular to women once they, a lot of women think that, well, they're in their 40s, they're still having periods, none of this applies to them, they're nowhere near menopause. But
Mhm.
that's not true either, right?
Right. Yeah. So really, when you hit your mid 30s, you're going to want to start paying attention to your cycle because there is a good part of the population that will start experiencing perimenopause symptoms at like mid 30s. So that's like a side note. If any of you ladies tuning in are around that age, just start paying attention to your menstrual cycle. In regards to insulin resistance, there are so many changes going on in our bodies through this phase of life. So, perimenopause is this shift of decreasing estrogen and then the loss of progesterone completely by the time you're through menopause. And then really relying on testosterone to help produce the hormonal component going on in your body, along with testosterone getting converted into estrogen very minimally. So that's one part of it. And I will say, like, insulin resistance is one of the issues that causes the weight gain around the midsection. It has a lot to do with cortisol production as well. So stress is another thing that can start to accelerate, especially I feel like if you're in career, if you're a mother, if you're trying to like wear all the hats still and juggle all of the things in life, that can also attribute to this insulin resistance that we see. And what this is it's really just a disruption in your body's ability to take up glucose into the cells appropriately. And really what you can do to help alleviate that is to look at your nutrition and see where am I eating foods that have high sugar content. And that's what I dive into with clients and things like that. And then we look at reducing the sugar component and focusing on a diet more based on protein, like clean proteins,
Mm-hmm.
vegetables, and complex carbohydrates, but in a sense of like not overdoing it. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So can you also tell us, like, what causes the metabolism to slow down at perimenopause and menopause? Is that even a thing? Because I've heard some people say, yes, it does, and other people say, no, it doesn't.
So really when you look at metabolism, you have to think about the different systems that contribute to it. And they can become sluggish over time if you're not taking care of your body the way that it's meant to be nurtured.
Yeah.
So
what would those big systems be?
Yeah, so that would be your pancreas, because that's where insulin is going to be coming from. And that's where we dove into a little bit of the insulin resistance there. Your adrenal glands is huge, and then also your thyroid. So when you move into perimenopause, you also have an axis called the OAT axis, ovarian, adrenal, and thyroid axis. When you're still cycling. And once you start shifting through into perimenopause, you're now relying on your adrenals, your thyroid, and more on your pancreas to help with balancing your hormones and releasing hormones appropriately. So I would say that, yes, it can become sluggish if you are not taking care of your body appropriately, like going through and detoxifying the systems and then rebuilding and resetting them with appropriate nutrition.
So what kind of tips could you give people for detoxifying their systems?
My favorite is a liver detox. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Really, one of my favorite things to do to help support the liver, and it's super simple, and I say it so often, like anytime I'm interviewed, it's like my number one go-to. If you're just looking for something simple to start, like a very easy habit would be to begin your day with a glass of lemon water. And not only does this help support your liver and begin to cleanse it, but it's good for your gut health, and it's also good for your adrenal glands too. So you're kind of like incorporating many different systems in this whole detoxification process. And then with like the nutritional component, I like to do a detox that's really nourishing, not anything where you're, drinking smoothies and drinking liquids all day. I do not think that that is healthy by any means. So what I like to do is eat real whole foods, but consume foods that are going to flush the liver out. So cruciferous vegetables are great for that. And then eating clean proteins, but steering clear of any red meat. So you could have shrimp, you could have chicken, that's okay if you don't like the shrimp component, and things of that nature that really help to support your liver and also like get it up and running optimally.
And any other things that you suggest people stay away from? And like, what about coffee? Where does coffee fit into all of this?
So with coffee, I like to recommend, it is okay to drink if you can have organic coffee, and only one cup of coffee per day. So, I know. So if it's possible, that's my recommendation. And I know it's possible. I had a client who used to drink 10 cups of coffee per day, and we got her down to one by the time we were like halfway through working together. So you can do it. I believe in you, and you'll actually feel better, because believe it or not, like coffee is actually doing, if you drink too much of it, it's going to do like the opposite effect of what you want it to do, right? Like keep you up and give you energy. It actually overtaxes your adrenal glands, and then that causes cortisol to be released, and then that's a stress hormone, and that makes you actually more tired. So my rule of thumb on coffee is 1 cup a day, and don't add any of the sweeteners or the fun creamers. If you can, drink it black, maybe with a little bit of cinnamon. I like to add organic coconut oil to mine and give it like a nice nutty flavor. It's really good, and gives you a little bit of fat too, which is also healthy. Saturated fat is also important for hormone health. And then if you do choose a creamer and you can tolerate dairy, just a heavy whipping cream is actually like the best option for you.
A what whipping cream?
Heavy whipping cream.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And my other rule of thumb with coffee is either have it with your breakfast or directly after. Don't have it on an empty stomach because of that issue with the adrenal glands and cortisol production.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying to start the day off with lemon water, right? And then to only have 1 cup of coffee with breakfast. So are you saying that these extra inches that creep on, that they're actually a sign, they're a symptom of inflammation in the body? They're not just extra weight, right?
Right. It's a sign of definitely like a hormonal imbalance, which is technically a form of inflammation in your body if you're looking at it from that perspective.
Right. Yeah.
So yes. And
so you're saying it's not a calories in, calories out. Going on the diet is not necessarily going to help you. No. You need to be looking like further under the hood. Is that what you're saying? So maybe just talk to us a little bit about that, because I know so many of us are like, we're in this diet mentality. We're counting calories, we're weighing this, we're going on this plan or that plan. And you're saying that that's kind of like a waste of time. Like you may lose, you may not lose, but you're not actually dealing with a sustainable long-term thing. So maybe if you can talk to us about that, because I know so many people who are struggling with diet culture still. And I mean, for goodness sake, we've been probably all been dieting since we were teenagers, and it's just enough already.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about diet culture too, is like, they're so good at like convincing you that you need the thing. But here's what I will tell you. You don't need to restrict your calories. You need to think of your food as a tool in your toolbox. And remember, like, it's there to serve you and nourish your body and to treat your body as the temple that it is. And when I think about diets, it's kind of like a swear word in my book, right? My perspective on food is eating intuitively and eating real whole foods. We have overcomplicated our nutrition to a point where it's just exhausting and overwhelming. And I will say that based on workshops that I've had in the past and just speaking with other clients, like that is something that they get really hung up on, like, what should I even be eating? And I'm going to tell you, it's so simple.
Yes.
You know, it really doesn't have to be like, okay, I need this many grams of protein and I need this many grams of complex carb and so on and so forth. Like, really, when I educate, it is on having a clean protein, healthy saturated fats, complex carbohydrates, and vegetables. And when you create your plate, you make it in a way where it's I would say balanced, in the sense that we're focusing on the clean protein and the veggie primarily as like the main source of our plate. And then the healthy saturated fat and complex carb is like the smaller portion of our plate. And really that's all that it has to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I agree with you. I do think that we've just overcomplicated the whole thing, right? There is a small nutrition component in my movement coaching program, the Reshape method. And when I have that private session with people, they're like, this just seems too simple. But it is. We make it way more complicated than it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
So tell me what it looks like for people who come and work with you. Are you taking the perspective that you're helping people with the underlying conditions that are going on with their body? What kind of, do you run tests? What kind of things do you do if somebody comes to work with you?
Yeah, so I have a course that I offer, and it's really like the foundational steps of creating hormonal balance. It's called the FEM formula, and that is a self-paced 6-month program for women. And it's a 5-step approach. We go through restoration of mind, body, and spirit, but also blend together the like physical and mind and spirit together with that 14-day liver detox and gut health reset. So like that's the first core focus. And then we move through working on the nutritional component. And that's like the meat of the program. It's it's quite lengthy and in depth, but it really gets you understanding your body on a very deep level. And it gets you confident in the foods that you're consuming and how to do this in a way where it's really honoring your hormones, depending on what phase of your cycle you're in or what phase of life you're in. And then, you know, at the end of the program, it's really this alignment into your femininity is truly like the final like cherry on top. And then I've also incorporated like specifics on perimenopause and beyond, because that's something that I feel we definitely need more education around. So that's also like little bonus video content in there that get like an extra layer deep into all of like the nutritional and supplement protocols, if that's the route that you want to go to in addition to nutrition. So that's one way that you could definitely like sign up and like get started helping heal your hormones, get them into harmony. And then I do work one-on-one with clients and offer in-home lab testing. So we look at the Dutch test, which is a hormone health panel. I do a micronutrient lab test as well, and also a gut health GI mapping, because everything, again, like we have to remember our body works as one. We're not compartmentalized beings. So that as well, that's a 6-month program. And there's a lot of touch points where we do one-on-one coaching with one another and things like that. So those are the programs I have. And then I'm also offering a free workshop called How to Master Your Metabolism in 4 Simple Steps. So that's actually coming up on Monday. And it's 45 minutes. And there's a replay if you can't catch the live, but this is where we're going to really dive deep into how your metabolism works, what things can disrupt your metabolism, how to support it, and then nailing down your hormone body type, because that's also something that we could have a whole other conversation about.
Right. Well, I'd love for you to be able to come back and tell us about that. Can you give us a little bit of like a sneak peek of what that hormone body type is?
Yeah, so there's 4 different types. There is the estrogen type, testosterone, cortisol, and insulin. And each one will depict like where you're carrying weight and where that imbalance might be. So that's what we're going to talk about in the workshop.
Fantastic. Yeah. Awesome. So if we can, we're going to be dropping the link below for people to sign up for your workshop. And I think that's a fantastic place to start, right? Knowing, and can people be combinations of things as well? Or is there one thing that's most dominant?
I would say there's definitely combinations that can happen for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, we will drop the links for the way for people to get hold of you and to come to that workshop, because I think the first part is even just acknowledging what's going on. All right. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on is so that people like, it's enough with the dieting, right? Let's get to the real root cause of the issue, and knowing and getting a sense of where you are with your hormones is really a great first step. So thank you. If you can drop the link to your workshop below. Remember, that is on Monday. And also today is May 5th, I believe. So people watching at a later date, you can always hop onto Elisabeth's website. The link will be there as well to see when you can jump on the next, her next workshop. And also just to remind everybody that on May 8th as well, I am running my spring 5-day walking challenge, where I'm going to be showing you how to get a strength building, butt sculpting, pain relieving, mood enhancing, calorie burning walk. Okay. And it's not about power walking or building up the sweat. There are actually 2 ways to walk. And most of us modern Western women are not walking optimally. So come and sign up for that. Just message me if you want the link. Otherwise, it's all over the place. And Elisabeth and I are setting you up
Yes.
for a phenomenal perimenopause and beyond. Thank you so much for coming to join us. Any final takeaway tip that you have for people watching?
I would say takeaway tip would be just remember that you don't need to overcomplicate things when it comes to your food. And I say that again because it's so important. And it really is like our greatest tool that we can use to start taking care of our bodies and healing it. So knowing where your food is coming from, eating those whole real foods, so important. And then being mindful and eating in a way that is intuitive to your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just steering clear of those processed foods, the foods heavy in sugar, and basically all fast food restaurants. That's why they're so successful.
Right.
But that would be my last tip is like, you can become your most empowered self through how you are eating, in all honesty. So
yeah,
that would be my tip.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming to speak to us today. It's been wonderful having you on the show, and hopefully you'll come again.
Yes, thank you so much.